Good morning, everybody. 125 days until opening day. Although I have heard over the past few days a few writers talk about how the season is likely to be delayed again by 4 to 6 weeks. I guess the thought is that they want to give everyone a chance to get vaccinated so that you can have fans in the stands. We'll see how all that works out, but barring injury, we know who's going to be taking the ball for the Yankees on opening day. That would be Gerrit, who's going to be 30 years old. He's entering the second year of a 9-year, $324 million contract. In his first year with the Yankees, he made 12 starts. He was 7-3 with a 2.84 ERA. He finished fourth in the Cy Young voting. He pitched 73 innings and had 94 strikeouts. He had a dominating start against the Indians in the postseason. Pitched pretty well against the Rays in the division series. But overall, a very nice season for Gerrit Cole. Exactly what you want out of your ace. Beyond Gerrit Cole, though, the Yankees don't have a ton of pitching in the stable right now. Masahiro Tanaka is a free agent, longtime Yankee. Just came off a 7-year contract where he pitched pretty well. And he made 10 starts this year, and he was 3-3 with a 3.56 ERA in 48 innings. James Paxton was not very good this year. He was 1-1 with a 6.64 ERA in 5 starts, 20 1/3 innings, 26 strikeouts, but he was bitten by the injury bug. Before the season, he had back surgery, and during the season, he had elbow issues. Look, there's just too many injury problems with James Paxton. I don't think you should bring him back. And then you've got Jay Happ, who had a decent season. He made 9 starts. He had a 3.47 ERA. He was 2-2. He's going to be 38 years old. The Boston Red Sox and the Toronto Blue Jays have both shown some interest in him. Now, I'm not the general manager. I'm just an armchair commentator. But my philosophy when building a team is that every pitcher in your rotation should be somebody that you feel comfortable with in the playoffs. And I have just never been comfortable with Jay Happ in the playoffs. Even when they brought him in out of the bullpen for Deivi Garcia, probably the dumbest move of the entire season by any team, by any manager. The Yankees just overthought the room, and it cost them the game. It may have cost them the series. But when Jay Happ came into that game, even though he had a very nice season, I was like, oh, God. Oh, man, why are you putting Jay Happ in? I just didn't feel confident that he would get it done. So, in my opinion, Jay Happ is going to walk. That's for sure. James Paxton could come back if you get him on a friendly contract, but honestly, I would stay away from James Paxton because, one, when guys start to have injury problems in their 30s, their velocity rarely comes back. Usually you have to adjust the type of pitcher you are. And James Paxton went from a guy who was throwing 96 to 98 to 91, 92, and some of it had to be the back surgery. When you watch his delivery, he really strides down that mound. He really extends himself, and when you lose a bit of mobility in your back, it's going to be really, really tough to duplicate that motion over and over and over again, and it puts more strain on your arm, which is why you saw him start to have arm trouble last year. So, in my opinion, you got to stay away from James Paxton. That leaves Masahiro Tanaka. Masahiro Tanaka is a guy you have to consider. Now, Tanaka is not the pitcher he was when he first got to the major leagues. He's not that dominant strikeout guy, although he can strike you out. He's got a good slider. He's got a good splitter that he's thrown less in recent years. He's pretty much gone to fastball slider. This year we saw his fastball tick back up over 94 miles an hour, probably due to some changes that he made with new pitching coach Matt Blake. Although it's possible that he could have just been throwing harder because he was pitching for a contract and he was aware that it was a shortened season. But he wasn't great in the postseason, which is one of the trademarks of Masahiro Tanaka's tenure with the Yankees is that he has been great in the postseason. So I feel comfortable running him back out there. This year may have been an anomaly. If you remember that first start against the Indians, it was pouring rain. It was whipping windy. It was just horrible. It was bad conditions. Neither starter pitched very well. And then against the Rays, the Rays have always had Masahiro Tanaka's number. So I feel like Tanaka's a guy you can pretty much count on to be consistent. And he's a good guy to fill in the middle of the rotation. So I would think the Yankees are going to try and bring him back. You got to think he wants to come back. The Yankees are the biggest stage in the world. He's a star across multiple continents, and he's comfortable pitching with the Yankees. So who do you have coming back in the stable? Jordan Montgomery is an option. He made 10 starts. He had a 5.11 ERA, but that's a bit deceptive. He had a lot of inherited runners score when the bullpen came in. His fielding independent pitching was 3.87, so that's not too bad. That was actually lower than Gerrit Cole, who had a FIP of 3.89. He actually had the best fielding independent pitching on the staff, but he did have a 1.295 whip, or walks and hits per innings pitched. You like it to be a little bit closer to 1 or below. I mean, that's really an elite level pitcher, but 1.295 means he hits a lot of bats. So Jordan Montgomery is a guy that is an option. Deivi Garcia, going to be 22 years old. He was 3-2 with a 4.98 ERA in 6 starts. He pitched into the 7th inning 3 times. I thought he was pretty good. I wish the Yankees had given him a better chance in Game 2 of the division series, but no such luck. They also have Schmidt, who came up briefly. He didn't really pitch very much, but he's a guy who is a top prospect. He was a first-round draft pick. I think his mechanics need a bit of work. They have Mike King, who made 4 starts. He had a 7.76 ERA. You've got Domingo coming back from suspension. He's pitched pretty well in winter ball. He went 4 innings of no-hit ball his first time out, 5 innings of 1-run ball his second time out. He's got an elite curveball. He's got a mid to upper 90s fastball. Now, he did make some mistakes. He served his suspension, but the Yankees are probably going to give him a chance to make the rotation, and he's pitched pretty well in the past. He was 18-4 with a 4.03 ERA in 2019, so he's got big league stuff. You've got Luis Severino, who's coming back from Tommy John surgery. He should be back in probably June or July. If I had to guess, it'd be more like late July, maybe early August, just based on how conservative the Yankees seem to be with their injuries over the past few years. So when you see all of these names, it really makes you wonder why the Yankees haven't done anything to address their pitching yet. Because really, behind Gerrit Cole, you have a bunch of question marks. You don't know how effective Jordan Montgomery can be. You don't know how effective Deivi Garcia can be over the course of a full season. You don't know how well Luis Severino is going to come back from injuries, and you don't know what you're going to get, if anything, out of Domingo, although I think he'll be pretty good. The man has had some issues. And as much as the Yankees have hyped them, I'm still not sold on Mike King or Schmidt. Neither one of them could throw strikes when they came up. Mike King got hammered. He had a 7.76 ERA. He throws a nice sinker, but he throws it belt high, so it's not that effective. He gives up a lot of home runs. And then Schmidt, he's got kind of a funky windup. You know, I feel like he really flies open on that front side. It's probably why he's had elbow issues in the past. But the Yankees seem very high on him. Perhaps they can correct his mechanics some, just like they did with Deivi Garcia, where they moved him from one side of the rubber to the other. That seemed to make him a lot more effective. So you never know what the Yankees are going to do to try and tweak guys' performance. They do like Schmidt's stuff, but really you can't count on these guys because they've never done it at the big league level. That's why I'm surprised the Yankees haven't jumped on bringing Masahiro Tanaka back. They also could have gotten a guy like Charlie Morton, but he signed with the Braves. He's off the board. Marcus Stroman was going to be an option. He's off the board. He's gone back to the Mets for 1 year and $18 million, the qualifying offer. So who's still available? Well, you've got Trevor Bauer out there. He's a guy that I've advocated for the Yankees signing. Sounds like he's enamored with the Mets. He hasn't made any decisions yet. He's obviously going to get more than $30 million per year, so he's a big, big hit to your payroll, but he's a difference maker. If you go into the playoffs with a top 3 of your rotation of Gerrit Cole, Trevor Bauer, and Luis Severino, that's going to be really tough to beat. And then you can maybe mix in a number 4 spot a Deivi Garcia or a Jordan Montgomery, as they did this year. You could even go with Domingo if he's pitching well, and he gives you a potential 1, 2, 3, 4 punch. I mean, Trevor Bauer just extends that rotation. You hear the Yankees talk a lot about getting more and more offense to try and extend that lineup. Well, how about extending the pitching staff? How about extending how deep into a postseason series you can go with deadly arms? I've been a big advocate of the Yankees signing Trevor Bauer. I don't think they're going to do it. There are other guys they could look at. They've looked at Garrett Richards, who's a guy who's also had some injury-prone issues, but, you know, he's got good stuff. They've looked at Lance Lynn, who would require a trade. He's got a mid-90s fastball. He pitched with the Yankees in 2018. He's become a pretty good pitcher over the past few years. They've looked at Corey Kluber, who's had some injury issues, but I don't think either of those is going to happen. So if it was my guess, I think the Yankees are going to bring back Masahiro Tanaka. I think they're going to hope that Domingo and Luis Severino can round back into form, and hope you get something out of Deivi Garcia or Jordan Montgomery, or some combination thereof, and then fill in guys in the bullpen as needed and try and develop Clark Schmidt. That seems like the way the Yankees are planning on going. It's the inexpensive route. It's the safe route. We'll see how it works out. I still think they should sign Mr. Trevor Bauer. And now I'm going to debut a new feature of this channel. This is a new regular podcast that I'm going to be doing with my buddy Tom Askew. It's called The Fine Art of Pitching. It's entirely focused on pitching. It's not going to be 100% Yankees related, but it will cover different topics. Today we're going to talk about coming back from Tommy John surgery. As I just mentioned, Luis Severino is coming back. Tom has had Tommy John surgery in the past. We're going to talk a little bit about it. And Tom's a funny guy, so you may enjoy this. So stick around. I'll also post it as its own separate video. We're going to try to do, a couple of these per month, maybe at least 2 or 3 per month going forward. Maybe not as many during the off season, but definitely once the season starts, we'll be watching different games, evaluating different pitchers, talking about different types of pitches, giving you pitching tips, talking about our own stories and telling our own experiences, and it should be a lot of fun. So stick around. Here is The Fine Art of Pitching. Okay, so here's the deal. We just did like a 20-minute conversation about Tommy John surgery, about Kerry Wood, about Mike Tyson, about all this shit, but the internet screwed up and basically wouldn't record the call. So we're going to start over. As you guys know, if you watch my channel, Tommy John surgery is an elbow procedure, which Luis Severino had last year. Jordan Montgomery had it the year before. My man Tom here actually had it several years ago. So I was going to talk to him about the process of coming back. So could you maybe just tell me how you hurt yourself? Tell me about like basically the circumstances and then the rehab process. And then we can kind of just talk about, what it was like getting back on the mound.
Sure. So, really when it comes to your UCL, you can have a partial tear or you can have a complete tear, which a lot of guys, hear that pop. And mine was partial. I didn't even know it was torn. I just thought it was like a little bit of tendonitis. But my athletic trainer said, you should probably get that looked at because, your elbow shouldn't be swollen that much. So I got some MRIs on it and they just confirmed that, I tore my UCL and that I needed Tommy John. Now, the surgery, not that bad. It's about 90 minutes, but it takes a full year to really come back from that because, basically, when I was done with the surgery, my arm was as stiff as a board. And I spent, a lot of the time in my kind of like 2 phases in first phase of 2 in my rehab, just trying to like stretch my arm back out so that I could throw again. But you hear all the time of like guys coming back off of Tommy John and throwing harder than they used to. And that was true for me too. But the real reason of that is that all of the exercises that they have you do for your shoulder, because, an elbow is a joint, it's not a muscle. So all of the exercises that I was doing in physical therapy, was basically just strengthening my shoulder. So by the time that I was ready to pick up a baseball again, my shoulder was nice and healthy and very strong. Now, as far as like recovery time, it still takes a full year. I had like 6 months of physical therapy and then another 6 months of just like, getting myself back into the rhythm of throwing a baseball and getting comfortable with, letting that ball fly out of my hand again.
So when we talked last time, you mentioned a good point, which was that you weren't afraid to let it go when you got on the mound, because by that point you had already done long toss. And that was really the first sort of goalpost to get by.
Yeah. When you're long tossing, you're kind of afraid, like, can I really go out this far? And, it's one of those times where you just have to like, I have to trust it. I have to test it. Otherwise I don't know. Are you afraid it's going to hurt again? Absolutely. But, if you don't try, you don't know. But, once you get past that and you're able to finish your long toss, when you get back on the mound, you're ready to go.
How many years has it been since you had your Tommy John?
I think 11 now.
Have you had any other?
I think it's been 11.
Have you had any other elbow problems with it since then?
So the only problem that I've really had with my elbow was actually this past fall baseball season. And the real reason for that was because, I really couldn't play any summer baseball this year, and I couldn't get in the weight room either. So my body wasn't very healthy. My shoulder wasn't very strong. I was still doing my running and stuff, but it just didn't feel like it was enough. And so my elbow hurt a little bit, but as long as I'm in the gym, taking care of my body and, running, which is what you absolutely have to do after a start. I don't believe in icing anymore. I just run. It gets all that lactic acid out of there, which makes my arm feel sore. So, other than that, no. But, with the guys that, do this every day, I think it all comes down to, what are you doing in between starts will determine, number one, how effective you are. And number two, how well you're, how good or how bad you're going to feel.
So I know I was never a big fan of icing either when I was coming up and pitching, but now that I'm an old man, 38 this upcoming year, I have to ice myself just from using the computer too much. I have to ice my wrists all the time just from it. So if I go out there and play baseball, I absolutely need to ice. So just because it hurts if you don't. Your favorite pitcher to watch growing up, who was it?
I was a big John Smoltz fan. I liked, I was a Braves fan growing up, and kind of part of that, kind of part of me being like a Smoltz fan was that everybody was a big Greg Maddux fan, and I just didn't want to be a conformist really.
Yeah.
But I like Smoltz a lot because he was a tremendous starting pitcher. He had the Tommy John too. And then he went on to be a phenomenal closer also. He's one of the few guys that did both. He started and he closed.
Yeah,
But his split finger fastball was very good.
Kerry Wood was one of those guys too that we actually watched this 20 strikeout, me and you both, performance, and he was nasty when he came up. He had the Tommy John surgery in 1998. He was 20 years old, but he was never really the same after that. And you don't know if it was just because he wasn't as good as hyped up, but something feels like he never got back to that form. Like he could never throw 98 for the whole game again after that Tommy John surgery. But he was nasty as a closer. He pitched for the Yankees for a little while. A lot of guys have had the Tommy John and gone on to be really great pitchers. Steven Strasburg was a World Series MVP a couple years ago, and he had Tommy John surgery his rookie year. So
just about a third of the pitchers have had it, man. It's really common, and I think it's just a combination of bad mechanics and just bad body maintenance too.
I was thinking about what you said before about how some guys, you got the ligament that replaced your ligament from the wrist. And you said some people have that ligament and some people don't. That's weird.
Yeah. So it's called the simplest way to do it is to make a number 3 like this, with your pinky and your thumb, and then kind of protrude your wrist out a little bit, and it should pop out of your wrist right there.
Oh, yeah,
this is evolutionary, like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's evolutionary. So it doesn't really bend a wrist or a finger. It's just kind of there. And so, some people have it and most people have it, but some don't. And because I had it, they were able to just take it from there. But, if I was one of those that didn't have it, my options would be, my hamstring, which has got plenty of down there, or a cadaver, take it from your, a dead guy.
Yeah, that's one way to get to the major leagues, right? If you were maybe a decent high school pitcher, but you get killed in a car accident, and then Kerry Wood needs your elbow, Kerry Wood needs your, you know what I mean? Maybe that's why he wasn't so good, So it's weird. I read this. I've been reading this book called An End to Upside Down Thinking, And some people who get like organ donations from dead people claim to have the memories of the person who died. It's weird. It's like it's a weird kind of that nobody can explain. They've even transplanted brains in salamanders, and then the salamanders retain the properties of the other brain. Like they can like if you put one salamander through a maze and then you give its brain to a different salamander, which they can do, the original salamander, which has a brain that didn't go through the maze, can still go through the maze. It's really, really weird. It's just it doesn't have any.
I mean, kind of like, easiest way to really describe that is like, think about taking your office CPU and then like bringing it home.
That doesn't make any sense. They're just saying, it's just weird that, I was just thinking that, like, what if you always wanted to be a pitcher, but you were never very good, but then you get like hit by a bus and your elbow like goes in, or your ligament becomes like a superstar, like, like that's.
Let's think about this too. If that like happens, not just your elbow is getting like, sent off to someone else, I imagine various pieces of you are going everywhere else. So,
yeah.
Are you haunting like 10 people at a time or just one?
I mean, what if, imagine being the doctor on the other end of the organ recipient. He got hit by a bus. He's all messed up. No heart, no liver. How's the UCL?
That's the UCL.
All right. So we haven't hung out in a while, but tomorrow night, Mike Tyson and Roy Jones, we're going to hang out. We're going to eat some pizza. What do you think is going to happen in that fight? There's no headgear, 8 rounds. And it's supposed to be an exhibition, but ask Apollo Creed and Ivan Drago what an exhibition is like. I feel like both of these guys are going to come out trying to win. It's one thing to play an exhibition in tennis where you're just batting the ball back and forth. It's another thing to play an exhibition where there's a 200-pound guy punching you in the face. That's a different type of exhibition.
I think Tyson channels his inner demon and just
his dark passenger
just goes after Roy Jones. I don't think it's going to last long either.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think Roy Jones is like 55 years old. He got the telegram or whatever. He's like, the fax. Oh yeah, I'm fighting Mike Tyson. This should be fun. Exhibition, make 25 million. Meanwhile, Mike Tyson's like pulling a train with his teeth, like training to get ready for this thing. He's like fighting giant bears and stuff, mountain lions. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be
going to bite Roy Jones's ear too. Yeah, it's kind of like a post Thanksgiving.
Yeah. All right, Tom, appreciate it. I hope everybody enjoyed this little conversation. We'll try and do this, at least a couple times per month during the season where we'll, watch the best pitching matchup of the week. Oh, there goes Pepper, the dog. So we'll try and watch the best pitching matchup of the week or every couple weeks and get on and talk about what we saw, break it down from an analytical fashion and from an old school pitching fashion. So thanks for joining me, Tom. I appreciate it.
Yeah, homie.
If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and smash the like and subscribe buttons. It helps YouTube suggest this video to other Yankees fans. Tune in all season long for series previews, post-game live streams, news, rumors, ranked lists, highlights, and long-form podcast episodes. See you next time.